Joe, great show tonight. Donald Trump's coattails aren't what they used to be. He is the undisputed leader of the Republican Party, but an election last night proves that he might not be the kingmaker. Good evening, I'm Leland Vittert. Tonight, Donald Trump is spinning a loss as a surprise win. Last night in Texas's 6th congressional district, Trump's pick for a vacant congressional seat lost in a runoff against what was described as a Reagan Republican. But as only the former president could do, he's claiming a win, telling Axios today, quote, "This is not a loss. The big thing is we had two very good people running that were both Republicans. That was the win." We know the former president isn't the most graceful loser, but should the GOP take this as a sign that his coattails are not the ones to ride in 2022, that is? His track record for endorsements has been good. 2018, 59% of his endorsements were successful. In 2020, he helped 144 candidates win. That's a 76% success rate. Count the Georgia Senate races where both Republicans lost, thus giving up control of the Senate. Mr. Trump is 1-3 since losing last November. Joining us now from Texas, longtime Republican campaign head Matt Makiawak. Matt, we appreciate it. The Drudge Report had the following headline: "The Don losing his touch." Is that a fair critique?
You know, this was an unusual situation. He was apparently kind of hoodwinked into getting into this race by the Club for Growth, the president, David McIntosh, a friend of mine, former congressman from Indiana. And he kind of went above Trump's advisors. And so in this case, look, Trump didn't know Susan Wright in North Texas. She did know her late husband, Ron Wright, who died in January. But at the end of the day, Trump's endorsement has to be fully utilized for it to make a difference. He didn't go in the district and do a rally. He didn't do any fundraising for her. He did three things. He released a statement, he did a robocall, and then the night before the election, he did a teletown hall. Well, by then, she's already down in early voting, including in Tarrant County and Fort Worth, where she's from. So it was too little, too late. On the other hand, Susan Wright did not raise money effectively, did not campaign actively, and Jake Ellzey ran a great campaign and deserved to win. So I don't think it tells us that Trump's done in the Republican Party, but I also don't think that it's a good sign that he decided to kind of give such a weak endorsement and not make his endorsement matter.
That was a tour de force of going through this race, Matt. We appreciate it. The other thing that people have pointed to in this race is that there was a small turnout, and because this wasn't a Republican primary, it was a runoff election, Democrats and independents can vote. So what I'm guessing you're saying from this is that if you had a real Republican primary come summer of next year, when we're gearing in to 2022, things look a lot different.
That's right. And I think you're going to see the former president, I think, get really more invested and more involved in races where people that he really doesn't like may be vulnerable. Think about Liz Cheney in Wyoming. Think about Adam Kinzinger in Illinois, both members of the House who voted for impeachment, both of whom are now serving on the Select Committee on the January 6th insurrection.
It's almost like our rundown, because somebody who's challenging Adam Kinzinger is coming up just in a minute after you.
Yep.
He still draws these big rallies, and we've got pictures. I think these are rallies from 2020, but we just think about a couple of weeks ago he was giving speeches and the lines go around. Let's put aside whether or not he can or cannot play kingmaker, because that can have different effects. Can he pretty much be a spoiler for anybody in the Republican Party? Can he be a spoiler for Liz Cheney or Adam Kinzinger?
I think if they have good, effective challengers who run good campaigns, yes, he can make a difference. Look, he can help you earn media. He can help you raise money. He can help you turn out people. He can help you create enthusiasm. Those are all real things. He's got a massive amount of data. If he chooses to run a serious political organization, he can be very, very effective. I don't think we know that yet.
How different will his endorsement play? And we've got to separate this between Republican primaries and the general.
Yes, very differently. He's going to be very limited, I think, in where he can make a big difference in general elections next year. That said, I think he can make a very big difference in primaries in many states, in House races, Senate races, governor's races. He's going to be endorsing his friends and allies. He's going to be going after his perceived enemies in the House in particular. And then he's going to look at seats where he thinks he can support someone who supports the America First agenda. But I think you're going to see him be more effective in primaries. In general elections, he's going to be very limited. You might see him in the Georgia Senate race. You might see him in a couple other places here or there. But he's going to be limited what he can do next fall, I think.
Matt, a fascinating conversation, as we said, a tour de force as you broke down the race there in Texas. Thanks so much. Great conversation. Good to see you, and we'll be having you back.
Thanks, Lynn. Congrats on the new show. Good to see you again.
Thank you. You as well. One could bet a lot in Vegas, very safely, that President Trump will not endorse Republican Adam Kinzinger in his upcoming primary. You just heard that from Matt. The six-term congressman voted to impeach Mr. Trump and now sits on the January 6th commission. He now faces a primary challenge, that is Kinzinger, from Catalina Laff. Today, she picked up an endorsement from sitting Congressman and Trump loyalist Madison Cawthorn. Here is the tweet itself. Proud to endorse a true American fighter today, Catalina Laff is an America First political outsider who refuses to bow the knee to the radical left. It's time for lions to rise. And with that, we bring in pro-Trump candidate, former member of the Trump administration, Catalina Laff. Nice to see you. We appreciate it. You worked in the Trump administration. Obviously, you'd won his endorsement, I would assume. Have you talked to the former president about it?
You know, the team is well aware of our race, especially as today it was made a lot of media headlines, and his endorsement still remains the most valuable currency in Republican politics, and certainly in a primary like the one that we are going up against Adam Kinzinger.
Looking in terms of what Kinzinger has, he has some structural advantages in that he is sitting member of Congress, and he's certainly gotten a lot of media attention from the left as well, because he is now seen as this person who is willing to be, and this is be their words, not mine, more reasonable. And these are pictures of him from yesterday on the January 6th commission, hugging some of the officers who were involved as well. But here's the structural numbers. Kinzinger fundraising numbers, second quarter, 806,000 campaign donations, 3.1 million saved, 349,000 from individuals, 456,000 from committees, 806,000 in campaign donations. Those are impressive. How do you go up against that?
Well, first and foremost, the way that this has been built in terms of the establishment, the swamp, it's built to preserve incumbents like Adam Kinzinger. But unfortunate to his campaign is that he has not had any infrastructure here on the ground. Since his first election a couple terms ago, he has not had a team. He did not have infrastructure. The only reason why he keeps winning is because he's never been challenged before. And this is the first time that he is being challenged by a formidable candidate in our campaign. We've raised over $250,000. We're heading into posting big numbers this next quarter. And we have, most importantly, the support of the people on the ground. These are people that supported President Trump. They don't want somebody like Adam Kinzinger representing their values, because clearly he is not representing their values. This is a heavy Republican Trump primary. It's a manufacturing, it's a small business, farmers, everyday Americans out here. And we are so confident going into this primary, knowing that the people of the 16th district want real servant leadership. They don't want somebody on MSNBC and CNN and being Pelosi's lapdog like Adam has been for the last.
It was interesting, your tweet yesterday. Adam Kinzinger crying about January 6th is nothing but political theater, just like everything else in Washington, D.C. Clearly, all of us can agree what happened on January 6th was awful.
Absolutely.
Okay.
And I don't think any Republican has ever said that it wasn't, and anybody that did commit a crime should be held accountable. That's been very firm.
Okay.
But more importantly is that it was theatrics. The way that he did talk about
this is an attack against him, not in terms of the process.
It's an attack against him, and it is an attack against the completely partisan process that Nancy Pelosi wanted in this commission. If she truly wanted it bipartisan, why didn't she have real conservative representation like Congressman Jim Banks, like Congressman Jim Jordan? People asking very tough questions to get down to the bottom of what happened.
Yes.
That was not what we saw. We saw a complete soap opera with Adam Kinzinger ready to win an Emmy for a daytime.
We don't need to rehash yesterday. We had this conversation yesterday. Asked some of the very same questions you did in terms of how do you have a bipartisan commission? How do you have Republican buy-in on a report clearly from a partisan commission? Last question for you going forward here, and this picks up on what Matt was talking about. Obviously, a President Trump endorsement would be huge for you in this race. Pretty safe to say he's not going to endorse Adam Kinzinger. How important would that be in the general, and do you worry that you'd have an effect almost like the Georgia Senate, where it would help you a lot in the primary, but it could hurt you in the general.
You know, like I mentioned before, having his endorsement is an honor, and it is still the most valuable currency today in Republican politics. But I think to also Matt's point on the race in Texas, it all comes down to the candidate and electability. You know, I'm fortunate enough to have a lot of people, a lot of different supporters from all different demographics and diverse backgrounds support us. It depends on how much work you do, how good your team is, and how much you're able to compete and the messaging. And I'm fortunate and confident enough that we have everything that it takes to not only win this primary, but also a general election.
Catalina, we appreciate you being here, and we're going to have you back. Thank you.
Thank you.
Great conversation. Whether or not the endorsements of former President Trump carry any weight or a lot of weight, the Republican Party is united around the idea of being anti-woke. Recent piece in the Wall Street Journal caught our attention, titled "The Revolt of the Unwoke." It focuses on an effort to recall 3 members of a school board in San Francisco. Quote, "If the land of woke has a capital, it's San Francisco." The city by the bay has now become ground zero for a revolt by unwoke moms and dads. Reverend Jesse Lee Pedersen, radio and TV show host, also an expert in education, joins us now. We appreciate your time, Reverend. Thank you. What do you make of the fact that this revolt, if you want to call it that, is starting at the school board level?
I think it's amazing. It's about time. It's about time that we, the American people, start to speak up against the enemies of America. What they're doing in San Francisco and around the country to families and children are absolutely wrong. And so they're not going to represent all of us. We need to vote them out and vote in people who represent the schools and represent all parents and not just some parents.
Zoom out for us in this. Does this go beyond the school boards?
It does. They pretend that it's all about race and that Black Americans have been discriminated against or due to racism and this critical race theory and all that crap. That's not good. You don't create a problem. You don't solve a problem by creating another problem. We have to go back to the best qualified person or the best qualified kids, those who are earning the grades, those who are earning their way, and not based on color. And I've said over and over and over again that Black Americans are not suffering due to this phony idea of racism or police brutality or slavery or Jim Crow. It's about the family. When fathers and mothers get married, they teach their children how to be good at what they do, how to earn their way. And this is not happening in the Black families right now for the most part, and that Black Americans are being used to destroy America and not build it up.
Sir,
and it's time to vote these people out.
I think you'd probably agree that woke culture sort of celebrates victimhood and weakness over the best parts of America. And then we see that Simone Biles is celebrated for leaving the Olympics because of the issues that she's having. Is that why, is sort of this change in culture that you're describing, why we're seeing suddenly celebration of people who say, I don't want to compete?
Everybody and their mama are victims now. And I noticed that these people who are crime victims are rewarded as though it's something good. That's not the right way to go. America is great because the people of America are great, those who earn their way. And when you give something to someone just because of their color or feeling this false sympathy for them, you're only weakening America. And there's no way we're going to continue to be great as long as we reward the victims instead of the children, adults and young, who are working hard to make America great by being their best.
I'm wondering, from your perspective, as you talk about role models, and you've been at this for a long time, we've been following your work for a very long time. You think about Carrie Strug in the 1996 Olympics, who won the gold essentially on a broken foot. And I don't think anyone of my generation, at least, can forget watching that night in Barcelona. And you saw her face as she ran down and then landed the vault on essentially a broken foot. It ended her career. We now know that she'd been really pushed hard to do that because of her team. Very different American hero to look at in the way Simone Biles is looked at, the way Carrie Strug is looked at. They're looked at the same way, but for different reasons. As you're trying to go into communities and tell people who their role models should be, which one do you pick?
I would say the one that struggled the hardest, the one that worked the hardest, the one that won the race based on a broken feet, the one that earned the weight, not some woman that you just felt sorry for because she was unable, any person, because they were unable to do the job because they didn't put their best into it. This is the raw road that we're taking. We cannot continue down this road. America will only get worse. And this whole thing really is about controlling the people, the leaders of the so-called leaders of the schools, of the government, they are trying to take control of the people by rewarding the weak ones and putting down those who are earning their way. It's a raw road to take. When I was growing up, the best man won. It didn't matter about color. It didn't matter about male or female. The person that worked the hardest.
Certainly America has changed over the past 20 years, and the pendulum goes far one direction and then comes back. We'll see if that's the move in San Francisco against the school boards is the beginning of that pendulum swinging back. Reverend, we appreciate all your time and also all the work that you've done in the communities around America. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Congratulations on your show.
Thank you. All right. The more things change, the more they stay the same, right? In Washington, it is the status quo once again. Senators agreed to spending more of our money. Just moments ago, the $1.2 trillion infrastructure bill cleared a major procedural vote in the Senate, but there's still a lot of infighting to be done, not just between the parties, but among Republicans and Democrats themselves. News Nation correspondent Kelly Meyer spent the day at the Capitol, and as I understand it, Kelly, Bernie Sanders says she's not going to be happy until we spend $6 trillion that we don't have.
Yeah, that's right. Bernie Sanders really wants this package to be $6 trillion, but he might not even get that $3.5 trillion that he wants to spend on things like child care, expanding Medicaid, and guaranteeing paid family and medical leave. But this is something that even not all Democrats alone can agree on. Some more moderate Democrats are looking at this price tag and saying they just can't support it. But Sanders is pushing for as much as he could get because he believes it's worth it. Here's how he described it to me. Take a listen.
Clearly, with 50 members, everyone has a slightly different point of view, and I'm going to have to work to accommodate each one of those points of view. But at the end of the day, we are going to pass this legislation.
And Leland, right now, this is really a pot of gold at the end of the rainbow. There just aren't enough Democrats who support this to get it passed. Earlier today, Democrat Arizona Senator Kyrsten Sinema came out against this spending plan, the $3.5 trillion, essentially blasting this from even having a chance of passing without her support. And this isn't the only thing that lawmakers are trying to pass. As you mentioned, there's the $1 trillion plan, which they're trying to do right now on Capitol Hill. And that $1 trillion is still a whole lot of cash.
Yeah. Big pots of gold, maybe big pot, bigger pot. Everett Dirksen, a senator before your time, once said $1 billion here, $1 billion there. Pretty soon you're talking about real money. Now it's $1 trillion here, $1 trillion there. Put that into perspective in terms of the difference between 1 and 3.
Yeah, I mean, you could buy essentially the whole company of Apple or the entire company of Facebook with that kind of cash. And that's what Republicans are pushing back against. They're saying that they're calling this, quote, reckless spending on the part of Democrats and saying that it's going to have record inflation and cause record inflation. Take a listen to what Florida Republican Senator Rick Scott said earlier this afternoon.
This is going to cause more and more inflation, but it's like the Democrats want to say, we don't care about that. We've got, this is our time to get our liberal wish list done.
And again, this is just more infighting because some moderate Republicans do support the infrastructure plan. They believe it's worth it. They say it's investing in programs and fixing bridges and roads and expanding rural broadband for Americans that need it. But at the end of the day, it's the American people at home who are suffering from this chaos on Capitol Hill because there is no action happening here on this infrastructure package. We did see that vote here tonight, but that doesn't mean that this will pass in the end. Republican Senator Tom Tillis told me earlier today that he could vote for this to proceed to the debate, but that doesn't mean he's going to vote for the final package. If something gets thrown in there that he doesn't like, that will erase his support, he tells me.
And who knows what happens when it gets to the House, if it's enough for the far left to vote for $1 trillion for Facebook, $2.5 trillion for Apple. Kelly, thank you so much. We appreciate it. Good to see you. Coming up, we might get tired of saying this at some point. To mask or not to mask, what happens when the county council overrules the county mayor? A maskless crusader coming up to talk to us. Plus, we showed you some scary satellite photos yesterday of a new nuclear missile site in China. Now we're talking to the scientist who rang the alarm bell. Plus, the classic no shoes, no shirt, no service declaration has now become no vax, no service at some restaurants. Then, the next time you relax with a glass of wine, think about this. Perhaps it just does as much for you as going to the gym. Wouldn't that be great? We'll see you after 7:30 for that answer.
This is scary. What we see here is China is starting to build up a bigger nuclear deterrent. The Pentagon warned us back in September that China planned to double the size of its nuclear arsenal. And now we see where some of those new warheads will go in that second missile field. And also, we've got
that was national security analyst Dr. Rebecca Grant last night talking about this new satellite image showing China's newest nuclear base. The new base was discovered as the second major missile base found in the last couple of weeks. I want to show you this. This thing right here is a big tent. It's what you'd think of would go over, say, a tennis court or something in the winter. Turns out that's where they're building the missile silos, and that's where they're building the underground caverns from. These here are the roads, and then this would be the construction site. You can see vehicles lined up and some trailers as well there. The other base was discovered in Yumen. It's a couple of 100 miles away. So we have another map to show you the larger thing, another construction site there. So training area, missile site, and laser base. We'll get to the laser base in a minute. The two bases here add roughly 230 nuclear missiles to China's growing arsenal of missiles. Joining us now, the man who helped discover these bases, Hans Christensen, director of the Nuclear Information Project at the Federation of American Scientists. We appreciate you being with us, sir. Take us through this process of finding a nuclear missile base in the middle of a Chinese desert.
Yeah, there are several steps. One, of course, is to know what you're looking for. And what we have done over the last 3 years, I think, is sort of, honed in on a little training site up in the northeastern part. So we knew what to look for. And a month ago, another team found another base near what's called Yumen. In this case, it was my colleague, Matt Quarter, who was browsing on the Planet Labs website, their satellite imagery.
So essentially, you're just like going through Google. You're going through Google Earth, like one of us would look at a new house or a new street. We have this other image that we can put up here. This is the image that you guys would have seen. We're going to get that in a minute. But under that little inflatable tent thing that they have there, how deep is the hole? Is there a missile there right now, or do we know?
No, we do not know. We can speculate, obviously, the depth of a ballistic missile, but we really have very little information about what the structure itself is. But we can see some other construction going on in places where they remove this dome over the silo, so you can see some of the outline already from some other sites. So we are pretty confident that it is a missile silo.
Okay, so we've got up here this construction facility, down here another construction facility, and then this is the missile silo. Any idea how long they've been working on this? Because you've been looking for it for years.
Yes. So we heard rumors that there were other silo sites around, and that's why we found it. But this particular site, this whole grid, the construction didn't start until March this year.
Okay.
So it's very recent. They're still filling it out. And the other large site that was discovered a month ago, construction of that didn't start until February 2020. So this is very recent developments.
Hans, you study these things, and for a long time, the Chinese had this idea of minimal deterrence. They were going to only be a second strike country, meaning they would never launch a nuclear weapon. As we see these new pictures, it seems as though this is probably proof that they at least want the option to change that and have the ability to strike first.
Well, I mean, China has had the ability to strike first if they wanted to for decades, but this is a new way of deploying large number of missiles. So there's no indication yet that China is changing its no first use policy or what it terms its minimum deterrent. But we think, at least in the terms of number of weapons, this could potentially indicate that they're moving into sort of, instead of a minimum deterrent, maybe a middle deterrent.
Yeah, well, the Chinese have a history of saying one thing and doing another. When it comes to nuclear weapons, you can't be perhaps too careful there. Hans Christensen, Incredible work, and the idea that you spent so many hours to find these and bring them to our attention, we really appreciate it. I would say come back when you find more missiles. That would be scary, but it would be important as well, sir.
Hopefully
Thank
not.
you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. There'll probably be more. Keep up the good work. Coming up,
Thank you.
The emergency alert system is now the latest weapon in the fight against COVID. That thing on your phone that goes off that's super annoying. We're going to show you the major city that's testing its effectiveness in getting people vaccinated. Plus, did you see this?
That we want to make sure that everybody has an opportunity to ask their questions, be heard, and get the answers. So let's bring it down a little bit, cool our temperatures.
It is an uncertain future in St. Louis after the county council votes to overturn a mask mandate. We're going to talk to one member of the city council about his move. And remember, you can follow us on social media at Leland Vittert, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok. My mom reads the comments. Please be nice. COVID stunner from the Big Apple. New York City is announcing it's going to pay residents $100 to get vaccinated against COVID-19. The payments start on Friday at city-run vaccination sites. The move comes as infections have surged and the highly contagious Delta virus spreads, Delta variant that is. The incentive, as New York City officials are planning a post-pandemic celebration with a free spectacle in Central Park for the vaccinated. One might wonder if you could sort of consider this mission accomplished. Similar, perhaps. We Love NYC, the homecoming concert, is scheduled for August 21st, touts a star-studded event with artists like Andrea Bocelli, Bruce Springsteen, and Jennifer Hudson. For those in the control room who are wondering if I know who those singers are, I actually do. Don't worry. The mayor's office says concertgoers will have to show proof of their COVID-19 vaccinations. Masks are going to be optional since this event is outside, although you could imagine lots could change between now and that concert. Now we'll go to Los Angeles, where they're trying a new tool. It's using its emergency alert system to push COVID-19 vaccines. So that's the annoying thing that goes on your phone that you can't silence, and it's gone off here in the studio a few times. The alert comes onto your phone, warning residents of the fourth wave of infections of the Delta variant, then directs them to a site with more information. Unvaccinated individuals, they're telling us, account for most hospitalizations and death. You can see one of the alerts on there. COVID cases are rising rapidly. Protect yourself, loved ones, and your community. You click on the link, it'll take you to where you can get vaccinated. Tell us on Twitter whether you would respond to one of those alerts or not. I'm at Leland Vittert. From Los Angeles to St. Louis, my hometown, another major city that has tried to institute a mask mandate. Well, LA did, and St. Louis County did, but there's now just a little problem. The county council voted to end its decision despite a surge in cases. Here's part of this meeting debating the mask mandate. Take a listen.
ICU bed occupancy continues to increase. Pediatric patients continue to increase in number, and the disease seems to be striking a younger age group than we saw at the same time last year.
All right, that was one soundbite, and there were an awful lot of people who were quite angry. Do we have this guy's sound? No, we don't have this guy's sound, but you can imagine what he was saying based on what he was wearing, or not wearing, I should say. The council voted 5-2 to end the mask decree after emotional pleas, as you saw, to end the order and some emotional pleas to keep the order. A number of people defied the order by not wearing masks when they showed up. Council member, former police chief Tim Fitch, led the charge to end the mandate and joins us now. We appreciate the time, sir. What surprised me most is when I looked at this, 5-2 means it was a bipartisan vote.
A supermajority of the county council, Republicans and Democrats, effectively terminated the mask mandate.
And let me see if I understand this right. The county executive unilaterally put the mandate in, and then you guys voted to end the mandate. How does that work?
The way it works is there's a change in state law that happened in June where it said the county executive has to come to the county council, tell us of his plans, and basically recommend what he wants to do. He did none of that. The Department of Public Health director told us he was intentionally told not to involve the county council in this decision because the county executive wanted to release this all on his own. So we took, obviously, offense to that. And our only option, according to the state law, is we could have terminated it. And that's exactly what we did last night.
So was this about masks, or was this about the process that the county executive went through?
Well, first of all, it's certainly about the violation of state law. That's what I focused on last night, is he did not follow state law, and the state law gives us the opportunity to terminate it. So what we did is we really weren't in a position that we wanted to have discussion last night about masks. My guess is that will take place at some day down the future. This was about the process of not following state law. They ended one-man rule. He decided he was going to keep that rule anyway, and he's still sticking to his guns today, even though we terminated it. He claims that his mandate is still in place.
So do you have to wear masks in St. Louis or not?
In the city of St. Louis, they still have a ordinance or a mandate that says that. Not in St. Louis County. You know, St. Louis City is not in St. Louis County. We completely surround. We have 1 million people. They have about 280,000. So
in St. Louis County, if I go to dinner in Clayton or out in Creve Coeur or in Chesterfield, suburbs of St. Louis, I don't have to wear a mask.
That is correct.
Fascinating. Now, local restaurants, though, can tell you to. It's not like Florida where they can't tell you what to do.
Absolutely. It's a private business. If the grocery store says we want you to wear a mask, you can. Nothing's stopping them from doing that.
The reason the county executive said they wanted to have a mask mandate, and one of the things they cited, in addition to the sound bite you heard from that doctor speaking about rising hospitalization rates, is Southwest Missouri, the Springfield area, and in particular the Ozarks, which is where a lot of people from St. Louis go to vacation, is one of the 3 hottest hotspots of the Delta variant around. Do you worry that there's going to be a time when there's going to be a lot more people coming up from the Ozarks after weekends bringing the Delta variant back to St. Louis, and all of a sudden we're going to get a lot more people infected in your city?
No, not really, because we know that the vast majority of the people that travel down to that area for holiday vacations, they're vaccinated. So that's not a problem for us. Our concern is when the residents from those areas, those hotspot areas, start flowing into our hospitals in the St. Louis metro area. And we have seen some of that right now, but to throw mandates on St. Louis County residents because we have people from 3-hour drive away coming to our hospitals makes no sense whatsoever at this point.
So if things got worse in St. Louis County, meaning the hospital started filling up with these people from the rural parts of Missouri coming up, and there'd be a reason to, considering how good the health care is in St. Louis, then would you want to have a mask mandate?
It would be something that I would at least listen to the health professionals, not the politics. By the way, the current health director, who, by the way, was upset after his talk last night and flipped the middle finger to the crowd as he was leaving.
Wow.
I would be interested in listening to the medical professionals that are not serving at the pleasure of the county executive, like our Department of Public Health director is. He could fire him tomorrow if he doesn't like what he does. So I would at least be open to listening to the arguments, and we haven't had that opportunity.
Well, important to know, you said the vote was 5-2, which was indeed bipartisan. We asked the 2 people who voted to keep the mask mandate to come on, invited both of them. They declined, so the invitation remains open. We're going to get you to take off your city councilman hat for a second, put on your police chief hat, because you were the chief of police in St. Louis County to 1 million people that you kept safe. We've seen around the country police chiefs in Chicago, in Oakland, in Washington, D.C., all now saying effectively, don't blame us, blame the politicians, blame our bosses, the police chiefs say. As a police chief, how big of a deal is it to say that and to put your job at risk and say blame the bosses for the increase in crime?
It depends if you have a contract or not. That's how you usually can find out if they're free to talk. So if they have a contract and the mayor can't just walk in and say, you're fired, bring in the next one. In Oakland, if you look at Oakland, California, how many police chiefs have they had there in the last 10 years? No contract. So they are on the hook. So when they say something that the mayor doesn't like, or there's a new mayor that comes in, the first thing they do is whack the police chief. That's how that works.
Okay, so Oakland, we didn't have a chance to do as much research on this segment as we would have liked, but do you have any idea about Chicago and Washington, D.C., where we've heard the police chiefs really coming out against the politicians?
Well, I know David Brown very well, who's the police chief in Dallas. He was the police chief today in Chicago, but he came from Dallas. Him and I went to Israel, if you remember that trip. We went to Israel together and visited over there and learned about their policing. I will tell you, he's a man of integrity. And if he thinks it's a problem, knowing him, he would probably blame the politicians, even if he didn't have a contract. So that's how he's put together.
It's interesting. The thing he blames not only the politicians, but Kim Foxx, the prosecutor, who he says just isn't locking up the frequent flyers of gun crime that are shooting up the streets of Chicago every weekend. That's a problem that's in St. Louis as well.
Absolutely. We have a circuit attorney here in the city of St. Louis, Kim Gardner is her name, and same thing. She has decided that she's not going to prosecute a lot of crimes. And I've always said to these individuals, if you want to be a legislator and you want to enact law, then fine. But it's not your job as the prosecutor to decide what laws you will and will not enforce. It's up to you to prosecute crimes. That's what you were elected for. So they've really become de facto legislators, and they're deciding what they believe in. Like our prosecutor in St. Louis County does not believe in the death penalty. Well, Missouri allows it, and he says, I'm never going to seek it. So he's acting as a legislator is what he's doing.
Well, and in St. Louis City as well. Former Colonel Tim Fitch, now Councilman Tim Fitch, we appreciate your time, sir. Good conversation as always.
Good seeing you again, Leland.
Thank you. Pleasure is ours. Coming up. All right, so many of us were way too busy to go to the gym, but perhaps a glass of red wine might be just as good. How much red wine equals an hour run? That answer when we come back. All right, it's how many of us relax, but now we're learning that, get this, red wine has health benefits as well. In fact, it's going to make up for some of your lost time at the gym. We bring in Leland Vittert, feature editor of the Harvard Data Science Review, professor at Washington University in St. Louis, also known as Mark and Carol Vittert's favorite child. So a bottle of wine equals how many minutes on the treadmill?
Okay, let's not get ahead of ourselves or too excited here. This comes from a study about a thing called resveratrol. And the idea was if you take resveratrol, it mimics being in the gym. But
and resveratrol is like a drug.
It's a drug that you can find in red wine, fruit, nuts, that kind of thing. Unfortunately, in order to get any type of health benefit from it that you would get at the gym, you need to drink between 100 and 1,000 bottles of red wine.
Well, 1,000 bottles over a year?
Again, let's not get too excited, more like a day, although
so 1,000 bottles in a day,
you could do it.
You could do it, okay. All right, so you have to think was it the Red Wine Institute that funded this study or something?
Something like that.
Something like that, figures. Okay, so light and moderate drinking, though, lower risk of heart attack and death in people with heart disease, sort of goes along with what we've always heard, which is a glass of wine at night, especially red wine, might be good for you.
Yeah, so let's take it, you're sitting at home and you're a moderate drinker, which means about 3 bottles of wine a week. And what that actually means is in comparison to never drinkers, teetotalers, you actually have a lower risk of any type of death. They're actually 20% more risk. Same thing if someone's a heavy drinker, 5 bottles of wine per week, you have a 20% increase. So you can sort of think about it 2 ways. Either if you're a moderate drinker with these 3 bottles of wine a week, you're at this optimal longevity, where up here you have never drinkers, teetotalers with a 20% increase, and heavy drinkers, and you're at this optimal level.
So for those of us, of course, who are up the optimal level all the time, is it only red wine or is it other things?
Any type of alcohol. So it has to do with units of alcohol. It's red wine, it's beer, it's spirits, it's any type of alcohol. It has to do with the amount.
And we've always heard, though, that, and you talk about this at the dinner table, correlation versus causation is that maybe the heavy drinkers are more stressed in their lives and the teetotalers are not. So these people in the middle kind of live in the perfect place.
Well, I'm glad you pay attention at the dinner table to me sometimes. But yes, the idea is that, for example...
I pay attention until the second bottle of wine.
The teetotalers, maybe they're teetotal because they have some other health problem, right? So maybe they're not actually these healthy people. But in general, all the research shows that some moderate level of drinking could actually be healthy.
Okay, and when you lived in the UK, and this was always an issue, women here, every time you have a glass of wine, think about the risks of breast cancer.
Yeah, and they really shouldn't. So let's take a look at the numbers. And I think we have a graphic to help us understand this. So if you have 100 women non-drinkers, 11 of them, you'll see them there in red, will get breast cancer regardless of alcohol. Now, if all 100 of these women drink 1.5 bottles of wine a week, instead of 11 women getting breast cancer, 13 will. These extra 2 women you see in blue. But if all 100 of those women drink 3 bottles of wine per week for their entire lives, instead of 11 women getting breast cancer, 15 women will. And we'll see another graphic with an extra 2 blue people there.
Okay, so the extra 2 blue people represent
the extra women who will get breast cancer because of drinking.
And that would be the next graphic.
Meaning that in effect, your risk goes from 11% to 15% for breast cancer, but you're drinking 3 bottles of wine per week for your entire life. A risk I'm willing to take. And as you said, while those in glass houses shall not cast stones, if you're drinking 3 bottles of wine a week, maybe you're a little bit stressed, or you're eating French fries with that wine. And maybe it's that that's causing the breast cancer and not necessarily the alcohol.
So when does the National Sugar Council do the study that says we can eat Snicker bars all day, every day, and live to 1,000?
Well, I just ate a Snickers bar right before I came on here, so
there you go.
Soon.
And we'll have wine
soon.
later tonight, so life's fine. So, okay, big point, though, here is you look through any of these studies, the headlines always tend to be great, but the data underneath, devil's in the details on this.
It's always murky. And, Lucky, every year you'll see, one study come out that says alcohol is okay, one study that it's not. I'm not giving medical advice, but I'm drinking tonight.
Drinking tonight. All right, and hopefully you're sort of right there, 3 bottles a week. Liberty, thank you very much. We learned on the playground that you're not supposed to call people names. Well, as the new mask mandates are in place on Capitol Hill, that's exactly what everybody who is supposed to be serving us did to each other. We'll tell you what they're calling each other next. Andrew Breitbart once said that politics flows downstream of culture. He was right. The lack of maturity and civility in our daily lives has now become commonplace in Washington. Here is the Speaker of the House, a woman second in line for the presidency, responding to a reporter's question about the minority leader, Kevin McCarthy.
Leader McCarthy says it's against the science.
He is a moron, is what she said. There are all sorts of quotes we learned in kindergarten about name calling. The minority leader responded by posting a 9-minute video of him pontificating on the House floor, as if you needed more proof. The last thing on the minds of the people in Washington is serving all of us. We'll see you back here tomorrow night. Marnie and Rob have Prime next.